scattered, barely perceptible points of light. Campfires. When his GPS unit confirmed that he was directly over the drop zone, he rolled on his back for a moment, staring up at a sky full of stars and searching futilely for the outline of the plane he'd jumped from. They were alone. That, if anything, had been made perfectly clear. He knew little about the country he was falling into at 125 miles an hour, and even less about the man they'd been sent to find. Caleb Bahame was a terrorist and a murderer so cruel that it was difficult to know if the intelligence on him was accurate or just a bizarre tapestry of legends created by a terrified populace. Some of the stories, though, were undeniable. The fact that he demanded his men heat the machetes they used to hack the limbs from infants, for instance, had considerable photo evidence, as did the suffering of the children as they slowly died from their cauterized wounds. The existence of men like this made Rivera wonder if God wasn't perfect, if even he made mistakes. And if so, perhaps his hand was directly involved in this mission. Not that those kinds of philosophical questions really mattered. While Bahame wasn't good for much, he would probably be just fine at stopping bullets, a hypothesis that Rivera was looking forward to testing, preferably with multiple clips. He glanced at his altimeter again and rolled back over, squinting through his goggles at the jungle canopy rushing toward him in the starlight. After a few more seconds, the glowing numbers turned red and he pulled his chute, sending himself into a fast spiral toward a clearing that he couldn't yet see, but that the intel geeks swore was there. He was just over 100 feet from the ground when he spotted his LZ and aimed for it, beginning a sharp descent that sent him crashing to earth with a well-practiced roll. After gathering up his canopy, he ran for the cover of the jungle, dropping his pack and retrieving his night vision goggles and rifle. The well-worn AK-47 felt a little strange in his hands as he swept it along the tree line and listened to his team touch down at 30-second intervals. When he counted 4, he activated his throat mic. "Sound off. Everyone okay?" These kinds of jumps were impossible to fully control, and he felt a little of the tension in his stomach ease when all his men checked in uninjured. Rivera moved silently through the jungle, the roar of the wind now replaced by the buzz of insects and the screech of tropical birds. They'd picked this area because the brutal terrain discouraged people from settling it. About 20 miles into the hike out, he imagined he'd be cursing the choice, but right now, the fact that no one was chasing them with red-hot machetes was a big check in the plus column. His team coalesced into an optimally spaced line as they moved north. Rivera fell in behind a short, wiry man wearing a black sweatshirt with cut-off sleeves, revealing arms streaked with green paint. The Israeli machine gun in his hands swept smoothly from left to right as he glided over terrain that would have left a normal man stumbling hopelessly from one tree to another. But he wasn't a normal man. None of them were. Their equipment and clothing were a patchwork collected from around the world. None of them had any tattoos or other identifying marks. Even their dental work had been altered to make its country of origin indeterminate. If they were captured or killed, there would be no fanfare or place in history, no heroic stories for relatives and friends to take comfort in. Just a tiny headstone over an empty grave. "Approaching rendezvous point," the man on point said, his voice slightly distorted by Rivera's over-the-counter earpiece. "Approximately 10 meters. The neat line of men dissolved into the jungle again, surrounding a small patch of land that had been recently burned by a lightning strike. Rivera peered through the foliage at the blackened trees, finally spotting a tall Ugandan standing alone in the ash. He was completely motionless except for his head, which jerked back and forth at every sound, as though the earth was jolting him with leftover electricity. "Move in," Rivera said into his throat mic. He'd seen it 100 times in training, but watching his men melt from the jungle always made him feel a twinge of pride. On neutral ground, he'd put them up against anyone in the world, be they SAS, Hachette 13, or Hell's own army. The man in the clearing let out a quiet yelp at the ghosts materializing around him and then threw an arm over his face. "Take off your night vision equipment," he said in heavily accented English. It was our agreement.